Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we're discussing a 2022 launch from Rolex, and it's a big one. This is the Rolex Oyster Perpetual GMT-Master II 126720 VTNR. This is the first modern Lefty series production Rolex GMT Master. We have a new form of Cerachrom, black and green on a steel base. This is a new application of Cerachrom in that regard, Cerachrom being the ceramic infill of the bezel. The timepiece features a Jubilee bracelet, a steel case, and diameter of 40 millimeters with a thickness of 12 millimeters, a lug-to-lug dimension of 48 millimeters. If we include the end links of the Jubilee bracelet, the watch has a 49.5 millimeter total distance across the wrist with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Taking a quick look, the VTNR is an easy watch to wear. Comfortable, flat, remarkably so, I should say. It's actually a little bit thinner than a Daytona, and that in spite of its dual time complication. It's short across the wrist. My wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference, and you can see that it's really nowhere near the edge of my wrist, so you could wear this watch in all likelihood on a wrist as small as 14 centimeters in circumference. It's also quite flat. At just 12 millimeters thick, it will slide underneath the cuff, and it can be used as a dress watch. The thing about the Jubilee bracelet in the modern era is that with center link construction being solid rather than previous hollow construction, it's as solid as a sports watch bracelet. So because of its short link profile, it's more flexible and silky on the wrist than the 3-link Oyster. It vents better as it has more gaps between the links than the Oyster, and with just as much structural solidity, you can now use the Jubilee confidently as a sports bracelet for years on end to no negative effect. And it is a better bracelet all around if you want to cool your wrist and enjoy comfort on hot days. I actually recommend the Jubilee these days as a sports bracelet, preferable to the Oyster. And of course, the Jubilee has a long-running history with the GMT, as traditionally from late 1954 and the first GMTs built, the Jubilee was always an option. That was curtailed a little bit in the initial ceramic bezel era, but today the Jubilee is back and the watch is better for that option. As you can see, the bracelet features polished center links, satin outer links, a little bit of a taper, a conforming end link to better integrate it with the case, polished outer faces, removable links fixed in place by screws, and you can see that well, and then the tool-free 5mm Easy Link snap-in, snap-out adjustment system, along with divots drilled inside the clasp. You can see them here. You can use your strap tool to change the anchoring point of the bracelet and the clasp. So you have 3 different ways to fine-tune the fit. Internally, you can see that the clasp and the swing arm are all thick gauge steel, nicely finished even internally. And then we have a double locking system. The inner lock is a beak and hook system. You see the beak, you see the hook. These two things latch together and snap shut, and then the clamshell closes. You can see this watch still has some of its original packing stickers on it. First owner's loss, your gain. You'll get this watch in outstanding condition. Now, this is the so-called super case with squared off lug ends and a sheer case flank, but it's handsome, and as you can see, it wears well in a sports watch format, as we have a blocky, square-jawed look that is a perfect fit for the aviator ambiance of this utility timepiece. At least it was a utility timepiece as initially designed. Today, it is rife with luxury refinements. Rolex, for example, has its own foundry. It makes its own steel. It constructs its own bracelets, cases, and clasps. This is 904L steel, which is a highly corrosion-resistant steel that in particular is resistant against sweat and sea salt. So after exposure to natural salts, unlike conventional 316, this 904L does not need to be rinsed. We have a screw-down trip-lock crown in steel. You know that because it has 3 symmetrical dots. That means it is a steel trip-lock, and it's on the left side. Of course, this watch is ambidextrous. Don't be deceived. I could easily wear it on my right hand or my left, and you saw that. It is not necessarily a watch for left-handed people. It works on both. Now we have a 100-meter water resistance, courtesy of the trip-lock crown and a screw-down Oyster case back, and we have a date that is over at the 9 o'clock side. And I like this because a lot of Lefty watches keep the date at 3 o'clock even as they rotate the crown. Now, I've had a lot of people asking, which direction does the date disc move as it changes? And so I'm going to show you which direction the date disc moves as the date rolls over. Now, let's slow that down a little bit and back it up. You could see that the date arrives from below. So it still turns in a clockwise direction there. The timepiece, of course, features 2 time zones, one of which can be adjusted independently. See how I'm changing my locality, but I'm not affecting the tick of the seconds, the location of the minute hand, or the location of the 24-hour hand. Now, when I pull the crown out all the way, now it's hacking seconds. I have stopped the movement. I can set it precisely against a reference time. The hands and the indices are white gold, so they won't tarnish or change color or cloud over time. The dial base is a lustrous black lacquer, and Rolex dial quality, along with Grand Seiko, really is the best in the luxury class. Short of haute horlogerie, no one really does it better than those two. Let's take a look at the lume. Rolex is a fully integrated manufacturer. As a result, Rolex makes its own lume. It's blue, and they call it chromolite. Notice all 4 hands are visible. Turning it over, we're going to have to visualize, but inside you have a caliber 3285, automatic winding with bidirectional action compared to the old 3186 and 3187 and 3185. All those dual time movements featured a rotor on a jeweled staff. This one has a winding rotor ball bearing, which is more shock tolerant. 70 hours of power reserve, 8 beats per second, 31 pivot jewels, COSC chronometer. It is all those things. It has the 2 time zones, 1 in 24, 1 in 12-hour format. You can hack the seconds, set it against a reference time, and the watch is actually cased up as a COSC certified movement. Rolex then tests the entire watch in 6 positions, not the COSC's 5, to make sure that the watch runs no worse than -2 + 2 seconds per day. That is the superlative chronometer standard. Those words for many years meant nothing. Now they do actually indicate a certain level of regulation and accuracy, +2, -2, or better per 24 hours. The structure of the movement includes a full balance bridge with a free sprung balance for shock tolerance and an overcoil hairspring so that in any position on your wrist or on your dresser or in the aircraft, perhaps if you are using it to navigate, the hairspring breathes concentrically. As a result, the watch will keep even time in any position because it is an overcoil. That hairspring is also made of blue oxidized niobium zirconium alloy that makes it highly anti-magnetic. So this watch is water resistant, shock resistant, and resistant to magnetism. Back in late 1954, Rolex debuted the original GMT-Master as a watch to help Pan Am pilots keep track of the time locally and at their destinations. Today, it is a luxury sports watch, and this VTNR model breaks new ground aesthetically. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.